Hello and welcome to Flory Models Kit Review Time. Today we got Hobby Boss's latest release. This is the 1/48 scale CH-47A Chinook. I think we're going to be seeing a lot more different flavours of this one around, so it's quite interesting to see they started off with an A. Obviously the bigger brother, shall we say, of Hobby Boss, being Trumpeter, already released this kit, obviously his 1/35th scale. They didn't do any of the others, seemed a bit strange, but now we've got Hobby Boss has come along with this particular version, so it'd be interesting to look at the parts breakdown to see if we are going to see other versions of it coming along. So, as you can see, nice little bit of box art on the front. The classic A version, as you can see just down on here. So, running around in the box, we can see some of the details. So, it looks like we get nicely detailed cabin. We've obviously got a full engine, which is a nice touch as well if we can open it up. Rotor head, obviously, and we've got the gear. All looks pretty good. We've got some photo etch, which, as we can see down in here, makes up for the engines. Comprehensive decals right the way through. Kit number for this one is 81772, and a little bit more with the markings down out on the back like that. So in the box we are greeted by the obligatory sheet on what's coming out. Okay, we've got the instructions, we've got big sprue, that's big sprues on there. So it looks like we've got the forward section. It's interesting breakdown the way they've done this. It's not your usual way of doing it. So that's one thing to look at. Okay, we've got obviously the decks, we've got the roof, looks pretty good. We've got some parts that are very well protected, which is nice. We've got the tail sections for the back end there, okay, which sort of indicates other versions. We've got the ramps, okay, we've got the top bit of the ramp down at the back, we've got the rotor heads down in there, we've got the engines, some of the windows, bits and pieces like that, and the spine. That's how they've done it. Okay, so, and then obviously we've got the fuel section, tanks on the side, and it looks like we've got the refueling points in the front as well, which is a story to that, which we'll tell you in a moment. It looks like we've got two decal sheets. Hey look, we've lucked out. Either there's an error on one and that's why they put two in, or for some reason I've ended up with two, but we've only got one lot of photo etch, which is fair enough. Okay, so if we start off, as always, have a look through the old instructions, see what we got. Okay, so as we can see up in here, we've got the normal way of doing it, if you like, with the actual parts layout, so familiarise yourself with. Okay, then we're straight into a fire extinguisher. I think that's our first. Okay, so step one over here, we've got a fire extinguisher and the mounts being fitted to that, and obviously it will go on the floor. Usual thing, we've got the collective, cyclic, the actual anti-torque pedals if you want to be precise with this one, and then obviously we've got the combing and the various areas around the fort or the centre console being fitted in, the instrument panel, things like that, right the way through, and obviously those sections being fitted. Seats completing your forward cockpit. Okay, and then obviously we've got some of the bulkheads in here, and it looks like it's got the quilting sort of done into this one as well, which is a nice touch. More of the bulkheads going to the rear sections, and then we've got this actual midsection down in here just like that. We've got the underplate as well, so this is actually for the one of the loads or the hooks underneath for the centre one. Obviously the Chinook is fitted with three, so that's the mid one down in there. Okay, then obviously we've got various equipment which are going up in here, which tends to be sort of communications equipment and navigation equipment, or certainly is on the later ones. Not sure about this version, but anyway, those being fitted down in there like that. And then you're going to be putting together the sort of rear half fuselage to the main fuselage, if you like, windows being fitted in, and unfortunately they do come in from the inside, which is not my favourite. I prefer them to go in from the outside because that way you can do it after painting, but you could possibly get in there and put them in afterwards, but we'll talk about that later. Okay, a couple of little things to open up as well, so you've got some little holes to open up in there. I assume it's for tail lights being fitted onto it, and then again we've got some more of the various parts being fitted in, a little bit of detail down in there in the back. Okay, another fire extinguisher going down in the back section, and there we go. That's one of those air conditioning units, I think, down in there, being fitted down into that one. And then usual thing, we've got the roof section being fitted in, and then we've got the floor. Looks like we don't get any seats or anything in there. I'm not sure about this particular version. You know, obviously the A version, I don't know if it was not fitted with seats or something, but it's clearly nothing to see in there, as you can see. Engines, nice touch with this one. So we've got fully detailed engines right the way through as well. So if you wanted to do these open, you could open up some of the panels to look like maintenance and things like that. We've got the little filters on the front of those which are in photo etch. Okay, so you're fitting those on. Then we've got these fuel tanks being fitted on the side. Okay, and those ones are going in there. Engines being fitted. We've actually got the entry to the cabin down in there fitted through. Same goes on the other side, as well as obviously all the aerial being fitted on there as well. Okay, and then we're just working our way through. So we've got the top part of the actual rear door being fitted down into there, and then obviously we've got the main gear being fitted into this one, landing lights, and obviously we've got aerials and a plethora of other details being fitted underneath. Okay, and then again showing the rear ones being fitted into there. We've got the doors being fitted over the actual undercarriage on there like that, and then obviously we've got rear ramps being fitted onto there for the rear loading ramp, depending on which version you want to do. Okay, we've got the split, which is really nice that this goes on the top, because obviously you're going to have a seam line down in there, so that just covers that up nicely. So as long as that's a nice fit, it should be a nice touch on that one. A couple of lights being fitted in there, and then hopefully your glass parts should be a nice fit onto the front. We've got the main rotor heads as well, those ones being fitted into there. Okay, so that's pretty straightforward, and that completes off your build. Interesting way of doing it. The reason I talk about this one as well, if you go back in history, and we are probably talking now at least 12 to 15 years ago, I actually built the Artillery one, which was reboxed by Revell in 48 scale, and to this point that was the only Chinook you could do, and I super detailed it. So we ripped it all apart. We put the refueling ports, which are the ones on the shoulders, in there, and the battery one on the other side, and also we did all the plumbing and wiring all in the back of it. We detailed the cockpit and everything. So I am familiar with doing these as a model kit, and I was hopeful that this was a more modern version. Painting diagrams, as you can see, we've got the various ones down in here. Being the A version, obviously this is probably out of the 60s and 70s. Okay, so that's those ones down in there. Only US markings. Obviously it's prolific helicopter, been sold many times around the world. Okay, photo etch, I don't think we really need to get this one out. As you can see, you've got very nice ones down in here. They are going to take a little bit of bending to get those around, but we've got the grills. It's quite a tight mesh. I don't think it's showing it particularly well on there without blinding the camera out. But you can see it's got the nice touches for all the meshes and the things in there. Okay, decal wise, clearly I've got two. I'm not sure if that's a fault. Sometimes perhaps left and rights have been screwed up, so that's why we get the second one, which we'll check on one of these now, just to see, or have I just literally lucked out and ended up with two. Okay, so we've got, doesn't look too bad down in there, I must admit. It looks pretty good, no problem at all. So we've got the air cab markings, all the various bits and pieces down in there. Looks pretty straightforward. Again, I can't actually see anything wrong with it, but I am only literally glancing at this one. So we seem to be okay on there. Alright, so fair enough. We don't know why we've got two. Okay, so let's start off with the major front parts. In here, a shallow cut. Again, very large sprue. Here. So down in here as well, we'll look at these all at the same time. As soon as we've got them, we've got the clear parts. But this is our forward cockpit sections, and again it's very difficult to see the detail on this. It's incredibly matte finish. Okay, we have got a little bit of a sink mark up here in the top. You can probably see that running across here as well. And to be honest with you, since this kit is a lot newer, I thought we might see some nice touches, but we've got a big mould seam line running across the bottom here as well. So obviously the way this is moulded, multi-part injection moulding, I wasn't expecting to see that in there. We have got a very fine one running along the top as well, but to be honest it's hidden in a panel line. Okay, the reason for that is obviously we've got this guy in here is creating a sink mark on the inside. Generally very nice hard plastic, huge sprue runner on this. That's absolutely huge, you know, to have something big as chunky as that. But again, it's getting it out of a multi-part mould. But yeah, generally I think it's okay. It's one of those ones, you catch it in the light, the details pop, it's just it's not giving itself any favours in this sort of plastic with the colour of it and the texture. You can't really see it. You catch it in the light. It has got really very, very fine panel lines, which is beautiful. My camera's really struggling to showcase it, but we have got lovely, very faint rivets in here and all the other parts. So that's actually quite nice. Okay, so again, you've got a couple of swipes. Will probably take out this, or you could probably get away with it being a panel line, but it does need to, you know, a little bit of attention on that. But again, on here you can see the sink mark up there. That's unfortunate. On the inside, we've got that quilted, and you can see probably by this is actually release agent. So you can actually see how this gets out the mold, you know, and all the rest of it. But generally we're okay. We've got a ejector pin up here, which you're not going to see. At least they haven't got any really horrible areas. You can see all the release ones up here, so that's pretty good how they've got it. And obviously we've got the quilting on the side, so that's nice detailing with that one. And exactly the same obviously on the other sides. A little bit more release agent you can see down in here. Okay, so that's that section. So let's have a look at the rear. Okay, so actually really very, very nice. You can probably see, but you can see the texture on the plastic. It's sort of hiding some of the details. There is a very fine, again, a sink mark running right the way along here. If you'd see it when it's painted, I'm not too sure. But you can probably see as well, we've got some little bits down in here, which are, yeah, they've been made up of this, which is fair enough. You know, so it's got very fine, but again, we talked about this, you get away sometimes the stress marks in the sort of metal finish of it, so that's pretty nice. And again, down in here we have got some big old ejector pins. Now the reality is this is covered in plumbing in real life, so you know, you could do like I did and put some wiring across here, quick rub, get rid of some of these ejector pin marks, and it'd be absolutely fine. Again, nice quilting down in here, various parts. It's definitely sharper and crisper than what we've seen with the older Italeri and obviously subsequently Reebok's Revel kit. So that's pretty nice. Okay, so where do we go from there? Right, okay, let's have a look. I'll just do them as we've got them here. So one of the big differences between the versions of Chinook is obviously the sort of pontoons on the side of them, as you can see down in here. And again, this one's no different. They've all got slight differences in these, so that's why we're saying you're going to be seeing other versions. Also, you can probably see how this is molded. It's got a downward tilt to it, so obviously this gives you the natural rotor sag, so you're not going to have to be bending it over your thigh and things like that. Okay, so as you can see, you've got the details. So this is the battery compartment on this side, and then obviously in here we've got the actual gear, and then working our way around and down. They've all got slight differences on these, the way they go. The later versions curl up at the end and things like that, so that's not too bad. The rotors themselves, as you can see, we've got some nice details in there. We've got all very faint panel lining and things like that. And then we've got the one over on here, and this is your refueling point on this side for them as well. So again, pretty darn nice. Over on this side, we've got some of the little parts. We've got the gear. Sorry, this is the rotor undersides to these, one would assume, which they are. So obviously split piece, two under them, just like that. Okay. Alrighty, so floor section. Okay, again, big old sprues with these, lots of stuff going around on them, as you can probably see. So actually down in here we've got a couple of nice touches. So we've got detailed flooring right the way through, some very nice small details, all the tie down points, the various parts for the cargo bay, and then obviously all of this over here is all quilted and things, because this is the sound insulation and things in the back. This is your ramp, so it's got 3 ramps around the tail area. We've got windscreen wipers, those famous fire extinguishers all over it. Okay, right the way through. We've got the bulkhead, again it's got the quilting onto it, nice touch, and then obviously we've got the roof, which again, I think again, I can't speak for the A, I only know the later versions, but they've got various normally control points and various little things all the way through these ones, so they're not quite as flat and generic as you're seeing there. So there's not a lot going on in the back. On the underside, you see pretty much standard right the way through. Okay. Then we've got the further parts with the engine detail, seats and the rotor heads and things. Okay, so you can see nicely done again. no problems. And then sprue B, as we can see, some of the smaller little parts down in here. So we've got the reinforcement points as well around the belly hook point. This is the rear door. Okay, the rotors, heads on there like this, so they're two-piece, so they're going to literally be squashed together. Okay, and then it's say that center one, which is nice because it gets rid of the center seam on there, so you're not going to worry about that. And then obviously sand on the raised details around that one, so that's quite nice. Some of the engine bits you can see down in here, these are for the shafts going from the engine into the rotors. You can see them all on there, so that's all pretty nicely done. Can't see any problems. All the small parts which are double-sided, like this is the door here, you can see there's no ejector pins on the inside of that, so that's quite nice. There's no ejector pins on the blind side there, so they're all tucked neatly out the way. Okay, last up we've got the rear ramp. Many RAF pilot has banged one of these, which is an expensive little mistake to do. Okay, so looking pretty good. So these are the cages over here for the photo etch is going to wrap round to give you your intakes for the engines. You've got your tails for the exhaust out the back, and then obviously some of the smaller parts for the gears and various things going down in here. This is the underside to your rear ramp, and obviously on this side you've got the top part of the rear ramp. Okay, got the engine mounts, other engine areas as well with more grilling on the side. Wheels, we don't have weight on wheels, it's just standard wheels as you might imagine right the way through. Again, nice touches. Okay, and again it's got a little locking point down in here. So yeah, interesting stuff on this one. Okay, the one which we want to see is why is this one so beautifully packaged away. So in here, this is going to be a bit of a surprise. Right, okay, so we're imagining this is probably a pair, which it is, so we don't need the other one out. Okay, so down in here we got the engine. So we got some of the rotor head, some of the smaller parts, the cyclics, the various things. Strangely enough, this is obviously the top part of the rotor head coming up through from the swash plate up there. Normally made of titanium or something very strong, but they've done it as not in one piece. So you don't really see it, but they've done it as two. Interesting. Engine again, and you've got obviously some of the turbine blades on the inside. As I said, we've got the swash plates, the various things for the actual rotor head assembly. Some of the very nice parts which are going to go onto the engine, some nice details in there. And again, we've got the main gear. And then these little guys are all the aerials which are going to go on the sides of this. So it's going to be quite a lot of fun getting them cleaned up without breaking them, so forth and so on. But yes, very nice indeed. Okay, last up we got the clear parts, which, let's face it, in a helicopter literally is make or break. So interesting way that they've done this as a sort of one piece like this. Okay, so but you can probably tell, it's something we've often spoke about, if there's one thing Trumpeter and Hobby Boss do normally pretty spot on, it is their clear parts, and you can see there's very little distortion through those. Obviously the chin ones there's always going to be because there's a complex curve in there, but they are all very clear. You know, when you're looking through under here, there's a little bit of scratching on the outside, but I think that's where it's been kicking around the bag a bit. But that's actually a very nice lead. If that lines up and goes on with no problem at all, it'll be great because you've got a nice deep bars down in here, but the roof ones haven't. So what I would hope is you'll be able to glue it on this area here, and you won't even need glue on this top one because it's very close to the clear parts. So if it fits well, you'll be gluing from the sides and not from the other areas where unfortunately you might end up with glue marks coming through. So if you can get away without it and just PVA glue them, that's a great start. We won't worry about getting this little guy out, but interesting way of doing it, quite old school. We've got a clear part for the instrument panel. Okay, so that's that little guy down in there. And again, we've just got the flat windows, so there's not a lot of point really getting those out. They'll be clear, and the bulge ones will be like goldfish bowls. So yes. So there you have it. Again, I know this kit quite well, as in its predecessor, which was the Italeri one, because I built a couple of them over the years and I've detailed them up with each time. So it is nice to see a modern Chinook to come along now. Is it better? The jury's out. There's a lot of moving parts on this one. This business where you've got the rear fitting to the front, is a different way of doing it. I haven't seen that before. Obviously the Italeri version, they've moulded new halves, and I used to have on our old website a full photo thing about the differences with the kit. Unfortunately that one died many years ago. So what this means is we're going to see other versions, so we should see the newer versions of the Chinook coming along and the Chinook family. And again, if they do other versions, which they may well do, like the MHs and things like that, it lends itself beautifully the way that they've done the parts breakdown. Just the concern is making sure this seam is a nice one onto the back end here, because that's going to be a nightmare if it's not. And then the big test will obviously be if the glass work is a perfect fit in here. Hopefully it will be, and that means it'll be a trouble-free build, because the rest of it should go together very nicely. But again, if it doesn't, it's going to be a lot to make that one work. So really the jury's out on this one until I find somebody who's actually built it and can say it's perfect, or they can say it's a complete nightmare. So there's a little bit of unknown in there. Normally I say it's a great kit, I can tell from the part breakdown, but with this one, just being honest with you, I don't know. It would be interesting to put it together just to see how well those seams go together. Anyway, that is the Hobby Boss CH-47A Chinook in 1/48 scale by Hobby Boss.